Have you noticed how painful it is to forget things you worked hard to learn? You read a book, attend a lecture, or watch a video and feel clever in the moment, and then, weeks later, you can barely recall a single useful point. We complain that learning is pointless. That memory is unreliable, and we wonder if our time spent studying is wasted. The truth is less dramatic. Your brain is doing exactly what it is designed to do. It prioritizes what matters to you emotionally and discards the rest. The good news is this: you can make your brain keep the things you want to remember, not with magic, not with gimmicks, but with a simple 3-step process that turns information into memory that sticks. These 3 steps are chosen deliberately to match how real learning happens. Start from interest, consume with intent, and lock in with recall. Use them consistently and the knowledge you gather will stop leaking away like water through a sieve. It will feel like the facts, ideas, and insights you collect are glued to your mind. First, learn from what you truly like. This sounds obvious, but it is essential. Your attention is the currency of memory, and interest is the easiest way to buy attention. When you study something that sparks curiosity, your brain flags it as important. It will create more connections, pay more energy to the task, and encode the information at deeper levels. So start with things you naturally enjoy. It could be sports, cooking, technology, travel, or even video games. Do not let anyone tell you that your interest is trivial. In fact, starting where you are excited gives you a real advantage. Motivation becomes effortless and attention follows. Over time, the curiosity naturally expands into neighboring subjects. Reading game design articles may lead you into art, programming, and even business models. A fascination with travel can grow into cultural studies, language, and history. The point is not to force yourself into topics you hate, but to choose entry points that your brain will willingly follow. If you begin from enjoyment, learning becomes delightful, not dutiful, and delight anchors memory. Second, consume deliberately and mix thinking with intake. Many people mistake passive exposure for learning. They read or watch without stopping, then wonder why they remember nothing. Instead, split your study time between consumption and reflection. If you read for 30 minutes, take the next 30 to think about the one idea that mattered most. If you watch a 15-minute lecture, use the next 15 minutes to ask yourself, what part excited me most? What surprised me? Where could I apply this? This 50-50 rule, half intake, half reflection, is simple but powerful. Reflection turns raw information into personalized meaning. When you translate a new idea into your own language, you build mental hooks that keep it from falling away. Write a short note, jot a question, or record a 1-minute voice memo explaining the idea as if you were telling a friend. These small acts of rephrasing and questioning are the difference between ephemeral exposure and durable knowledge. Third, practice active recall, the most effective trick science has shown for durable memory. Recall means deliberately trying to remember without looking at the source. After you finish a chapter or an article, close the book and ask yourself, what were the main points? Which example stuck? Where can I use this idea? Spend 5 to 15 minutes pulling those ideas out of your head. Do not simply reread. That is passive. Recalling forces your brain to retrieve information, which strengthens the neural pathways associated with that memory. It is the mental equivalent of lifting weights for your memory. Over time, recall transforms fleeting impressions into long-term mastery. Importantly, make the recall personal. Focus on the one element you love most about the material. The combination of emotional interest and forced retrieval makes the memory resilient. If a chapter sparked an aha feeling, that feeling is the glue. Let it guide your recall. Together, these 3 moves, start with interest, alternate intake with reflection, and practice active recall, create a loop that cements knowledge. But let me give you a practical example so it is easier to apply. Suppose you read a 3,000-word article about a coach who inspired a famous athlete to change. Read the piece slowly, then stop and spend 10 minutes answering one question. What example from this article could I use in my work? Maybe the coach used a playful challenge to win trust. Write that down in your own words. Then, the next day, try to recall the story and the lesson without looking. In a week, test yourself again. Each time you pull the memory, it strengthens. In months, that story becomes part of your mental toolkit. It is accessible when you need it, not buried in the attic of forgotten facts. A few more practical rules make this system even stronger. First, prioritize short, focused sessions over long, distracted ones. Your brain encodes better when you give full attention for a short burst than when you drag through hours of half-hearted reading. Second, keep a simple notebook or digital file labeled with the topics you care about. Do not aim to collect everything. Instead, capture the one idea that lit you up from each session. Over weeks and months, you will have a curated, personal library of insights. Third, share what you learn. Teaching is a turbocharger for memory. When you explain an idea aloud or write a short post about it, you are forced to organize your thoughts and spot gaps. Feedback from others also helps refine your understanding. One more psychological tip: anchor new knowledge to stories and emotions. The brain loves narratives. If you can wrap an idea into a short story or a vivid example, it will be far easier to recall than a dry list of facts. The emotional charge does not need to be dramatic. Even a mild curiosity or a small delight is enough to make a detail memorable. Finally, practice patience and persistence. Some memories stick quickly, others slowly. The goal is not to become a walking encyclopedia overnight, but to build a habit of learning that produces deep, usable knowledge. If you follow the three-step loop: interest, reflective intake, active recall, consistently, your relationship with information will change. You will stop losing the value from what you read or watch and start turning learning into real, lasting change. Imagine reading one chapter and holding on to 20 practical lessons from it a year later. That is possible with this approach. So to recap, choose what you are genuinely curious about. Split your time between consuming and reflecting, and force yourself to recall what mattered most. When you make those three moves into a habit, your memory becomes less a mystery and more a reliable tool. Learning stops being a short-lived thrill and becomes a life-changing practice. Try it this week. Pick one article or chapter you have already read. Spend half the time reflecting on the one part you loved. Then practice recalling it tomorrow and again next week. Notice how different it feels when knowledge starts to stick. If this video helped, share it with someone who forgets everything they learn. And leave one idea you will apply in the comments. Keep learning, keep reflecting, and watch your knowledge stay with you.